Imagine picking up what looks like an ordinary stone from the Scottish Highlands and discovering, mid-throw, that it is actually a hand grenade with the pin already pulled. These are not gentle genealogical curiosities or decorative clan badges to hang above a fireplace in New Jersey while you sip blended scotch that has never been near a real Highland distillery. These names were carved into prescription orders, whispered in the dark because speaking them aloud could send a man to the gallows, and written in the final letters of people who marched onto a frozen moor in 1746, believing a French-backed prince would save everything they had built. And he didn't. 1. In 1603, King James VI signed a royal prescription making it illegal to bear the MacGregor surname. Death, the stated penalty. Following the clan's devastating massacre of some 200 Colquhoun men at Glenfruin, the crown attempted to erase a people by canceling their entire identity, which is the kind of administrative move that modern thought leaders would call bold restructuring and historians call cultural obliteration. The ban held with brief interruptions for 172 years until Parliament finally repealed it in 1775, making it the longest government-enforced surname prohibition in recorded British legal history. 2. The MacGregors didn't simply vanish, they dissolved into the Highland landscape, adopting aliases from clans like Murray, Campbell, and Grant to survive, becoming what Gaelic tradition named Clan and Seo, the Children of the Mist. Any person found sheltering a MacGregor could be legally killed without criminal consequence, turning entire communities into involuntary participants in a decades-long manhunt. Rob Roy MacGregor, born on March 7, 1671, and repeatedly forced to sign documents under his mother's maiden name of Campbell, spent his adult life navigating that precarious legal void while accumulating the mythology he never deliberately sought. 3. The Campbell political genius was not military. It was transactional, refined across generations, into an art form that would make modern lobbying firms weep with professional admiration. During the 1650s, they backed Cromwell. In 1660, the Restoration Monarchy. By 1688, William of Orange. Pivoting their entire institutional allegiance with each regime, a change like a political consultancy that simply invoices whoever currently holds the room. By the late 17th century, the Argyll branch alone commanded over 100,000 acres of Scottish territory, accumulated almost entirely through strategic political alignment rather than conquest. 4. On the night of February 13, 1692, Robert Campbell of Glenlyon led government troops who had been guests inside the homes of the Glencoe MacDonalds for almost 2 weeks, eating their food, sleeping under their roofs, before murdering approximately 30 of them before dawn, with dozens more dying of exposure in the freezing mountains during the flight. The murder under trust order had been deliberately delayed by Scottish Secretary Lord Dalrymple to ensure it arrived only after the troops had been formally received as guests, converting the ancient Highland law of hospitality into a precision assassination instrument. 5. For nearly 2 centuries before 1493, the MacDonalds governed as the semi-independent Lords of the Isles, operating their own courts, distinct legal codes, and diplomatic channels that included secret treaties with both England and Ireland. Correspondence specifically designed to neutralize the Scottish Crown's authority over the western seaboard and the Hebridean island chain. At their peak, they controlled roughly a third of Scotland's landmass. King James IV dismantled the lordship entirely in 1493, only after the fourth Lord, John MacDonald, was caught negotiating covertly with England for at least the third documented time. 6. At the Battle of Culloden on April 16, 1746, the MacDonald regiments were denied their traditional position on the right flank. A place of battlefield honor they had held by custom since Bannockburn in 1314, over 400 years of military precedent, simply overruled in a single staff decision the night before. Lord George Murray assigned them the left, and first-hand accounts suggest some MacDonalds refused to advance at all while others openly wept on the field, before government artillery dissolved the entire Jacobite line within approximately 40 minutes, ending the Highland clan system's military era permanently. 7. The Murray name traces to the ancient region of Moray in northern Scotland, and the clan's defining historical moment arrived on September 11, 1297, when Sir Andrew Murray, co-commanded alongside William Wallace at Stirling Bridge. A tactical masterpiece that destroyed the English cavalry by drawing them onto a narrow wooden crossing over the River Forth and attacking before the column could fully deploy across it. Murray sustained a fatal wound that day and died within weeks, leaving Wallace as the sole commander and as the sole recipient of 7 centuries of subsequent historical mythology, while Murray was quietly erased. 8. Simon Fraser, the 11th Lord Lovat, nicknamed the Fox for a career of political scheming, so elaborate that even his own allies could never fully read him, played both sides of the 1745 Jacobite Rising by sending his son with Fraser clansmen to fight for Bonnie Prince Charlie, while personally performing Hanoverian loyalty in Edinburgh, the kind of calculated duplicity that reads brilliantly in espionage fiction and collapses catastrophically when your own private correspondence becomes Exhibit A at a treason trial in front of the full House of Lords, which is precisely what happened to him in 1746. 9. Simon Fraser's conviction concluded on April 9, 1747, when he was beheaded at Tower Hill in London, the last public decapitation ever carried out in Britain, closing a judicial tradition that had run for centuries. The crowd was so enormous that a temporary viewing scaffold erected nearby collapsed mid-proceedings under the collective weight of spectators, killing several people and injuring dozens more, which even by the remarkably grim standards of 18th century public executions was considered a spectacularly undignified way to share a historical occasion with the condemned man himself. 10. The Stuart surname did not begin as a family name. It began as a job title, specifically the High Steward of Scotland, a senior administrative post first granted to Walter FitzAlan by King David I around 1136. The hereditary nature of the role eventually converted Stewart into a dynastic surname, and by 1371 the family had ascended from royal administrators to the throne itself when Robert II became the first Stuart king, establishing the dynasty that would produce Mary Queen of Scots, James VI, and the eventual union of the British crowns in 1603. 11. James Stuart, James VI of Scotland, became James I of England in 1603 by inheriting the English throne as the great-great-grandson of Henry VII, through his mother Mary Queen of Scots, herself executed by her cousin Queen Elizabeth I in 1587 for conspiring against the English crown. The family that had begun as royal stewards in the 1130s now simultaneously held both kingdoms. Yet that same dynasty would fracture within 90 years into the Jacobite crisis that ultimately sent thousands of Highland clansmen to die on a frozen Inverness-shire moor in the drizzle of an April morning. 12. Donald Cameron of Lochiel. Gentle Lochiel was personally persuaded by Bonnie Prince Charlie in July 1745 to commit his clan to the Rising despite holding serious private doubts about its viability without guaranteed French military support. He brought approximately 700 Cameron clansmen to the Glenfinnan Standard Rising in August 1745, and historians have consistently argued that without Lochiel's public commitment that afternoon, the fragile coalition of Jacobite clan chiefs would almost certainly have failed to coalesce into a functioning fighting force, meaning the entire 1745 campaign may never have happened at all. 13. After Culloden, British forces responded to Cameron territory with systematic devastation, burning Achnacarry House, Lochiel's ancestral seat on the shores of Loch Arkaig, to its foundations, destroying crops, and driving off livestock across the Cameron lands to render the region economically indefensible for any future Jacobite mobilization. Fort Augustus had been built in 1729 specifically to project government military authority into Cameron-controlled Highland passes, and after 1746 it became the administrative center of the pacification campaign. Lochiel escaped to France and died in exile in 1748, never returning to the landscape his family had held for centuries. 14. The MacKinnon clan's most enduring contribution to world culture may not be battlefield valor, but a recipe, specifically the formula for drambuie, the honey and Scotch whiskey liqueur now sold internationally, which clan tradition holds was given directly to John MacKinnon of MacKinnon by Bonnie Prince Charlie in 1746, as a gesture of personal gratitude after the Mackinnons sheltered the fleeing prince through the Western Isles following Culloden. The recipe remained an exclusive Mackinnon family secret for over a century before commercial production finally began in Edinburgh in 1909, generating a global brand out of a fugitive's thank you gift. 15. Rosslyn Chapel, begun in 1446 by William Sinclair, 1st Earl of Orkney, and requiring approximately 40 years to complete, contains over 110 carved green man figures embedded throughout its stonework, a pre-Christian symbol so philosophically incompatible with Orthodox medieval Christianity that its densely saturated presence inside a 15th century chapel remains unexplained by conventional architectural scholarship. The chapel also features the apprentice pillar, whose interlocking carved stone spirals achieve a geometric precision that contemporary structural engineers have not fully replicated using only the manual construction methods available to a medieval Highland workforce. 16. The Sinclairs held the title of hereditary Grand Masters of Scottish Freemasonry through a charter dating to at least 1601, and possibly significantly earlier, making them the only family in documented history to hold a hereditary Masonic Grand Mastership as a formal dynastic right rather than an elected office. While other powerful institutions were selecting leadership through parliamentary vote or royal appointment, the Sinclairs simply inherited the most significant administrative role inside Scotland's most secretive fraternal organization across multiple generations, without anyone in the available historical record apparently finding this particular arrangement worthy of serious challenge. 17. The Highland clearances reached Ross Shear in earnest during the 1790s, when landlords discovered that Cheviot sheep generated considerably more revenue per acre than the tenant farmers who had worked the same fertile valleys for generations. So they simply removed those farmers, burning roof timbers while furniture was still inside, demolishing stone field walls, and evicting entire townships within single days. With the dispossessed families transported to rocky coastal strips where they were expected to survive by fishing, a skill many Highland inland farmers had never developed, and were now given absolutely no time to learn. 18. The Dress Act of 1746 banned Highland garments across Scotland, kilts, tartans, clan-specific dress, with 6 months imprisonment for a first offense and 7 years transportation to a penal colony for a second conviction, meaning a man could theoretically be shipped to the far end of the earth simply for wearing the wrong pattern of cloth. The act remained in force for 36 years until 1782, ensuring an entire Highland generation grew to adulthood having never legally worn the traditional dress their grandparents had treated as the baseline visual language of daily existence. 19. Here's the detail that should genuinely disturb anyone who has ever felt emotionally moved by their clan tartan. The overwhelming majority of clan-specific tartan patterns were invented in the 19th century. Sir Walter Scott stage-managed King George IV's theatrical 1822 Edinburgh visit, during which specific tartans were assigned to each Scottish clan, many of them freshly designed by Edinburgh weavers with no documentary historical precedent whatsoever, transforming a practical regional textile tradition into a branded identity system. The cultural equivalent of a marketing consultant retroactively assigning corporate colors to a 500-year-old military institution and calling it heritage. 20. Ewan Macpherson of Cluny refused to leave Scotland after Culloden, hiding instead in a cleverly engineered concealed shelter on the slopes of Ben Alder known as the Cage, camouflaged against the terrain, stocked with provisions, insulated against Highland winters, where he concealed Bonnie Prince Charlie himself for several weeks in late 1746, long after most Jacobite supporters had already fled the country. Macpherson then remained a hunted fugitive on his own ancestral land for 9 consecutive years, before finally escaping to France in 1755, without having been captured once across nearly a decade of active government pursuit. 21. Anne Farquharson Mackintosh. Colonel Anne raised the Mackintosh clan for the Jacobite cause in 1745 while her own husband Aeneas held an active commission in the Hanoverian government forces, producing in practical terms a civil war conducted entirely within the boundaries of a single marriage. Charles Stuart stayed at Moy Hall, the Mackintosh seat, in February 1746, And when a government column of approximately 1,500 soldiers marched to intercept him, a small group of Macintosh loyalists successfully bluffed the entire force into full retreat through darkness and noise in an engagement history records as the Rout of Moy. 22. The Highland clearances displaced an estimated 150,000 people from the Scottish Highlands between the 1750s and the 1850s, and those emigrants, together with their descendants across multiple generations in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, produced the modern Scottish diaspora, currently estimated at between 28 and 40 million people worldwide, set against Scotland's present domestic population of approximately 5.5 million, meaning the descendants of that systematic displacement now outnumber the people still living in Scotland itself by a factor of roughly 6 to 1.